Warren Buffett. When you think of investing legends, his is probably the first name that comes to mind. He's a financial icon worth tens of billions of dollars. And for decades, pretty much everyone has been trying to figure out what is his secret. And you can see why. Just look at this number. For over half a century, his company, Berkshire Hathaway, has delivered an average annual return of 20%. Now let that sink in. Most professional money managers would kill to beat the market for just a few years. Buffett has basically doubled its historical average for an entire lifetime. It's a staggering achievement. So that really brings us to the big question, right? How does one person win so consistently in a game that is famous for its uncertainty, for its emotional roller coaster? You know, most of us get caught up in the day-to-day panic and hype, but Buffett, he just seems to be playing a completely different game.
Well, the secret isn't some super complex algorithm or a hidden formula he keeps locked away. Turns out, his entire approach, his whole blueprint, can be understood by looking at two sides of the very same coin: his mindset and then his method.
So let's start with the first side of that coin, the mindset. This is the bedrock of everything he does. Long before he even thinks about buying a single stock, Buffett has already won half the battle, right here in his head, by mastering the psychology of the game. And this is where he just flips conventional wisdom completely on its head. Buffett says you don't need to be a rocket scientist. In fact, he's joked that if you've got an IQ of 160, you should sell off 30 points to somebody else. What you really need is the right temperament, that emotional stability to think straight when everyone around you is losing their minds. This right here, this isn't just some clever little catchphrase. This is his entire operating system. For him, when you see widespread fear in the market, that's not a reason to run for the hills. No way. That's a massive buy signal. He gets that people are emotional, they're predictable, and that's exactly what creates the opportunities he's been cashing in on for decades. Another huge part of his mindset is knowing his own limits. He calls it his circle of competence. And the idea isn't to know everything about everything, not at all. It's about knowing exactly what you know, and just as important, what you don't know. He will only put money into businesses where he feels he can confidently see where they'll be in 10 or even 20 years. He loves this quote from the founder of IBM, and it just nails the concept perfectly. He knows where his spots are, things like chewing gum, insurance, Coca-Cola, businesses whose fundamentals aren't really going to get shaken up by some new tech trend. And he never, ever strays outside of those spots. Okay, so now for the other side of that coin, his method. Once that mindset is firmly in place, Buffett follows a really clear set of rules. He doesn't see himself as a stock picker. He invests like he's buying the whole business. Now, early in his career, he used what he called the cigar butt approach. He'd look for a company that was basically trash but had one last free puff of value left in it. Kind of gross, right? But he learned over time that it's way, way easier and more profitable to do what he does now, buy a truly wonderful business at a fair price. It's a huge shift from looking for something that's just cheap to looking for something that's truly valuable.
His actual process is so disciplined, it's almost simple. First, he has to understand the business, inside and out. Second, he calculates what he calls its intrinsic value, basically an educated guess of all the cash that business is going to produce for its owners over its entire life. And only then, after all that work, does he even bother to look at the stock price. He'll only pull the trigger when that price is way below his calculated value. That gives him his margin of safety.
This might be his most famous rule, and it just perfectly captures the discipline we're talking about. Protecting your money is job one. He says if you find yourself in a hole, the most important thing to do is to stop digging. And for an investor, that means having the patience to wait for the perfect pitch, instead of just swinging at everything that comes your way. To really hammer this discipline home, he uses this amazing thought experiment. Imagine you get a punch card, but it only has 20 punches on it for your entire life as an investor. Every decision you make uses up one of those precious punches. All of a sudden, you'd think really, really carefully about every single move you make, wouldn't you? You wouldn't just dabble. You'd wait for the absolute no-brainers. So
We've looked at his mindset, we've looked at his method, but to really truly get his blueprint for success, we have to look at what he considers his most important investments. And spoiler alert, they have nothing to do with the stock market. I mean, it's a great question, right? With all the billions he's made from companies like Coca-Cola or Apple, what does the man himself point to as his single greatest investment of all time? And the answer is just, it's incredible. It wasn't a stock. It was a book. Benjamin Graham's The Intelligent Investor. Buffett says that book gave him the entire intellectual framework for his whole career. So his single best investment wasn't in a company. It was in a philosophy. It was in knowledge that would guide every single decision he made after that.
But hold on, because there's an even deeper layer here. When he was asked about the best advice he ever received, his answer had nothing to do with finance at all. It came from his father. The greatest lesson he ever learned, he said, was the power of unconditional love.
And that really brings us to the core of it all. All these principles, patience, having integrity, staying in your lane, investing in what you truly believe in, they're not just for the stock market. They are a blueprint for how to invest in yourself, how to find what you're passionate about, how to build a successful life. So as we wrap this up, just remember Buffett's real core belief. The best investment you can possibly make is in yourself, in your own talents, your skills, your character. So that leaves us with one final question to think about. What's the next investment you're going to make in your most valuable asset?